Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Clangin and Bangin with Mikey, episode 225. And good morning. Happy Sunday. What I wanted to talk about today, man, is number one, these NBA playoffs have been fucking amazing. It's refreshing to watch people play actual basketball. But it's also not refreshing as guys see complaining about the contact. I'm like, play ball, bro. Go play basketball. Anyway, man, what I wanted to say in this episode, and I've been having this on my mental for a minute, man. It's having the ability to be okay with not being there for everybody, right? And what I mean by that is, like, you can't be there for everybody. You can't be that shoulder that they run to cry on 24/7. You can't be there to hear them, bitch about the same problems over and over and over again, because that just doesn't work. Like, you can't be that emotional doormat for people. They keep coming in with the same problem, same bullshit, and be like, "Oh, how come it doesn't work out? How come he or she doesn't want me the way I want them?" Because it's clear that they don't want you how you want them, because they don't feel the same way. And I think a lot of people will trick themselves into thinking, well, if I try harder, like, no, it don't work that way. When we're younger, we've all done that shit. Like, we try harder, we do X, Y, and Z, and it's like, it comes down to the point, it's like, yo, if the other person wanted to, they would. Like, if they wanted to spend time with you, they would. If they wanted to call you, they would. If they wanted to talk to you on the phone, and when you called them, they would. If they wanted to do X, Y, and Z with you, they would. It's like, I see so many people end up in relationships and or friendships, where they're just used and abused. It's like, yo, like, there's no reason. There's no rhyme or reason to know why you're in the situation you're in, right? Because I think it's important to have boundaries, man. I think it's important to understand that, like, yeah, okay, like, I understand what you're saying, but I'm not gonna be there for it. I understand what you're saying, but that doesn't have nothing to do with me. I understand what you're saying, but I don't really care. And I think a lot of people will try to use that against people, and you can't. It's okay for people to choose themselves. It's okay for people not to be involved in your bullshit. It's bullshit. It's okay for people to be like, you know what? This isn't conducive to me, right? I'm gonna tell y'all a story. So when I first moved back to Hawaii, I moved back from California, and it just, all my plans that I had just fucking fell through. Like, everything I wanted to do fell through, and not in a good way. So I remember, I was out one night with a couple friends of ours. One of the guys I knew, because he was in the Navy. Anyway, he was in town for a couple of days, whatever it was. And so we took him over to the local bar, just having a conversation. We're just chilling. And so we drop him off, and he lived, like, right down the street from, where I lived at. So I was like, yeah, no problem, bro. I can drop you off, dog. So he dropped him off. And then my partner at the time, he wanted to go back into town. And mind you, it's like a 20-minute ride into town, but it's already like 1:30 in the morning. And I was like, dog, no, it's like, because there was a couple after hour spots that he wanted to hit. I'm like, bro, I'm not driving back into town, bro. You know? And it had nothing to do with me not having the funds and everything too, because I had the funds, I just didn't want to drive. And he said something I'll never forget. Because at that particular time, I was still waiting on a couple jobs to come hit me back, you know, to start work. Because I had moved back, like, you know, like months ago. Just, you know, I was looking for work. Anyway, he goes, man, you ain't got a job. You ain't got nothing going on. Like, let's go. I was like, excuse me? And he didn't say nothing. I was like, get the fuck out of my car. What? Like, get the fuck out of my car. And he kept trying to offer this half-baked apology. And I told dude, bro, fuck your apology. And fuck you. Get the fuck out of my car. And he kept trying to apologize. And I was like, just close my door. And I kept repeating that. I was like, just close my door. Close my door. Close my fucking door. Exactly like that. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't mad. I was just like, and I had remembered there was another guy in my back seat, and how he knew him was that was his ex-girlfriend's younger brother. And I told when I said get the fuck out of my car the first time, I forgot the kid was back there. So this fucking kid hopped the fuck out. He's oh shit, got out the car. And I've never been that mad in my life, man. It's like to have somebody air me out, you know, simply because I didn't want to do what they wanted me to do. You know, I didn't want to do what he wanted to do, so he decided to air me out. And most of the time when he did that to people, it worked, right? And not with me. So I think about that time. I think about that situation from time to time, and I just shake my head because it's like, I wonder how many people, you know, he got away with that shit just being blatantly disrespectful. And every once in a while, like, I'll see him around and shit, but I don't say nothing to him, you know? Because we live in an island, bro. so you're going to run into motherfuckers that you don't want to see all the time anyway. And, but yeah, man, it's like, what's amazing to me is that I remember once it was me and I hope she's not still dating him. When I lived in California, I drove from Cali to Vegas for the weekend because, you know, I went to go see him. And I had, we was in Walgreens or Target or something, and like, I remember his girl, she had this big ass tote bag. I'm like, this shit was huge, right? It took up the fucking thing was massive. And like, we had a bunch of shit, and so we walked in the strip, whatever, you know, just chilling. And she goes, hey guys, what you go, like, you know, because we had a bunch of snacks and whatnot. We're waiting in line to check out. And she's like, hey guys, what you go, like, how about how about you guys put your drinks and your snacks in the bag, so that way we don't have to carry everything, you know, individually. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense, you know, okay, whatever. I knew what she meant. What she meant was after we got up to the register, which you know, like, you know, then his ass was like, well, you know, well, that would be stealing. Mind you, me and him graduated from the local university, University of Hawaii. His girlfriend I believe at the time was taking a break from Stanford. So what's that tell you? She ain't fucking stupid. Um, but here's the thing that shocked me, bro. It wasn't what she said, it's how she responded. When she said, "Why do you always treat me like I'm stupid?" And light bulb, me, boom. Oh shit. This isn't the first time. And I remember we get back to the hotel, and we in the Uber. So we get back to the hotel, and she gets out the car, and fucking slams the door, rightfully so. Like, yo, you know, and we stayed in separate rooms. So partner came by my room. I'm like, and like the whole, I think we were supposed to go out after we came back from this trip. Like, okay, cool, whatever. And she ended up not coming. And so me and him were talking, and I was like, dog, it's like, we need to stop disrespecting her, bro. He's like, what? He's like, yeah, we need to stop doing that, man, because it's like, you're going to end up losing this girl because it's like, you know, of X, Y, and Z. Stop disrespecting this girl, you know? It just doesn't make any sense for you to keep doing that. And then his response was, well, her emotions isn't my responsibility. True, it isn't, but how you talk to her is. And like, mind you, this is a guy at the time who was in, I believe he was in graduate school to get his master's in psychology. You know, so he wasn't a stupid dude. He just didn't give a fuck. You know, and I think a lot of people will put up with shit that they have no business putting up with. In that situation, it was, you know, my former partner treating this girl like shit. And when in reality, it's like, out of the three of us, she was the fucking smartest. I mean, like, I think Ma was the valedictorian for her high school, and she had a full ride to Stanford at the time. You know, and I don't think she graduated because she ended up taking a break and she never went back to Stanford. And I always think like, yo, how different your life would have been if you would have just not taken that break. Because I think she got to her junior year and then she came back for the summer and she never went back. And I just look at that like, damn, like, I just wonder how different your life would have been. You know? I mean, having a college degree holds weight, you know, but having a degree from Stanford and the resources that they have is insane, right? You know, think about that fucking network. No, that network of fucking connections that they have. And I just think about that, and I think about it. I'm like, yo, imagine how different your life would have been if you just wouldn't have done what you done. It's like I had one of my other brother's friends back in the day. We was true freshmen in college. He was going to a JC, and I think like a couple months before he left, him and his ex-girlfriend, or his girlfriend, his high school girlfriend at the time, they would always get into fights, always get into squabbles and shit, like verbal arguments. And he put his hand through a fucking table. Mind you, he plays quarterback, so he needs your fucking hands, right? He goes up to that school, and the school realizes like, oh shit, you're injured, bro. And he's trying to play off the injury. And the school goes, hey, don't worry about your scholarship. What we're gonna do, we're gonna ingratiate you, which I didn't know you could do, which was a medical injury. And they said, yo, you know, well, like, we're gonna pay for your surgery, you know, we're gonna ingratiate you. Don't even trip on your eligibility, because it's like you would have like a gray shirt plus a red shirt, and then your 4 years eligibility. This is like probably, what, this is 2006, so this is like 15-20 years before what we know now, you know. And but yeah, I remember he had came back for a funeral, I think, and he never went back on that plane. You know, and then he ended up just catching, just getting into dumb shit. I'm like, and I often wonder, like, bro, like, what? How different your life would have been if you would have just got back on that plane and went back to school. I'm not saying that you would have made the NFL or a Paul 5 school or something, but it's like, yo, if you would have just got back on that plane and just go off and finish your schooling, you know, because he wasn't a stupid dude. Like the guy I think he had like a 3.2 GPA, decent athlete, better student than athlete, was athletic, nice guy and everything, but it's like, I often wonder, like, yo, like, people who make these mistakes is like, yo, it's like, if you would have just went off and just followed the plan, if you would have just went off and just did what you had to do, how different your life would have been. And I'm not talking shit about anybody. I'm not talking down on anybody. I'm just saying, because it's like, yo, like, imagine how different your life would have been. Imagine how different your life would have been, like, if you would have just did what you had to do. And like, it's not a knock on anybody. It's not me talking shit, but it's like, hindsight's always 20/20. And I think a lot of people, when we're young, we make mistakes. Some we can bounce back from and learn from. Others we can't. And I think that's the most disheartening thing too, is like when people make these mistakes at such a young age. A lot of it is really difficult for people to bounce back from. A lot of it is difficult for people to be like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Making a mistake at age 18, 19, 20 years old is like, versus 35. I'm like, nah, like, bro, you know better. Or it's like when people make the same mistakes over and over and over, it's like, bro, like, now it's not a mistake, it's a choice. You're choosing to do this. You're choosing to be this way. You're choosing to not be a responsible adult. You're choosing to not be punctual. You're choosing not to be X, Y, and Z. It's like, after a certain point in time, which is 25, that's when your frontal cortex is fully developed. You know what you're doing. Yeah, people may have, they may act out emotionally, because whatever reason, right? Because it's like everybody's allowed to display their emotions. But at the same time, it's like you have to look at it and be like, yo, it's like, is this really worth my time, or am I going to fuck this up? Or am I going to fuck this up because I can't get out of my own way? And like, that's the worst thing you can do is sit there and make it be something that is not. And it's disheartening too, because a lot of people will be like, well, I didn't mean for that to happen. Like, no, but it happened. It's like the guys who go to jail for drugs. Like, they want to talk about, like, oh yeah, well, everybody I had left me. Yeah. Like, yeah, why would they stay? Like, you're no longer a source of revenue. You're no longer fun to be around. You're a convicted felon. You're going to spend 5, 6, 10, 15, 20 years behind bars for doing what you did. And you know what? You ain't got nobody to blame but yourself. And it's like, people who do that shit, most people that I know, they don't have to do that. They don't have to do anything of that nature. It's like, these are guys who have connections. These are guys who have influence. These are guys who, they could have did anything that they wanted to do, but they decided to do that. And because it's not like most of the guys I knew who went to jail for drugs, it's not like they grew up in, poverty. You know, we all grew up the same way, like middle class, bro. And it's ridiculous that people will be like, well, my situation was different. Like, no, no, no. Like, you made a choice. You cared more about your reputation than your character. Reputation is who people think you are. Character is who you really are. I'm gonna say that again. Reputation is what people think you are, or who people think you are. Character is who you truly are. At the end of the day, man, I'd rather struggle, or I'd rather have hardship working a 9 to 5 because it's honest, rather than dealing in like, you know, uh, anything illegal. You know, because it just doesn't make any sense to do all that. It's like you're gonna risk what? Living in a cell for the next however how many years? You're gonna risk what you losing contact with daily contact with your friends and family and everything. Again, it goes back to what I was saying in the beginning. You have to understand that it's okay to not be there for everybody, and like it doesn't matter what the situation is. Um, just take care of yourself. Take care of those who those of who that you love. You know, and be there. It's simple, man. It's like don't think you have to do everything for everybody because at the end of the day, um, if you do that, then how are you going to be there for yourself? And it's important to realize that, man. It's like you don't have to be there for everybody. You don't have to do X, Y, and Z. You don't have to do anything like that because at the end of the day, while it's great to be there for everybody, you have to realize that some people are only there because they know that you can catch them. It's true. Some people are only in your circle because they know if they fucking fall while they're falling, you're gonna catch them. And you don't have to do that. Sometimes you have to let people fall and let them fucking hit rock bottom, smack dab them right in the fucking face. Boom! Before they can realize that, yo, I have to change. It's like the person who just has bad money habits. Stop saving them. You know, stop lending money. Stop hearing them out. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, they're not gonna change. They're gonna keep doing what they've been doing. And you know what? It's not conducive to to becoming better. Because like I said, after a certain point in time, it's a choice. It's not a mistake. It's a choice. You're choosing to do all this shit the way that you're doing it. But what do I know? Alright, y'all. This is about 24 minutes of your life that y'all won't get back. Hope y'all keeping the 4 P's private, clear, positive, and pushing. I'll see y'all next week. I love y'all. And like I always say, know your worth because you're better than what you are. Alright, y'all. Peace. And oh yeah, by the way, next week Sunday is Mother's Day. So for all your mamas that are still alive, go spend time with them, man. You know, make memories. And if y'all beefing, fry that shit up and eat it. Because once they gone, you can't get them back, man. All right, y'all. Peace.